Hello and welcome to our episode today that deals with reporting of development program. Our subject expert is Dr. Saad bin Zia and I am Amrita Ghosh Kumar. Dr. Saad is a seasoned journalist and researcher with more than a decade of industry as well as teaching experience. Introduction. Development program refers to a set of communication procedures and practices to facilitate social development. Development program engages stakeholders, establishes conducive environment, assesses risks and opportunities, and promotes information exchanges to bring about positive social change via sustainable development. Its techniques include information dissemination and education, behavior change, social marketing, social mobilization, media advocacy, communication for social change, and community participation. Nora C. Kibral expanded the definition of development communication and calls it the art and science of human communication applied to the speedy transformation of a country and the mass of its people from poverty to a dynamic state of economic growth that makes possible greater social equality and the larger fulfillment of the human potential. In any development program, people are the target. The needs of the people predicate the delivery of development, whether it be in the form of values education, skills development, livelihood assistance, human settlements, etc. The success of a large majority of planned development programs depends on the preparation of the target group of such programs. For any real development to happen, there must be an inner change of people to be willing to participate and be involved in matters that affect their very lives. Program implementation. The implementation system of developmental program simply represents the internal workings of a program, what their key components are and how they relate to each other. Factors that may influence implementation system performance include implementer training, program characteristics, example program complexity, availability of training manuals, etc. Implementer characteristics and organizational characteristics. In order to accurately measure implementation, programmers need to focus on three key areas: program foundations, the implementation system, and program monitoring. Once a clear understanding of program theory has been established, it can be used to develop an implementation process theory, which outlines the mechanisms whereby program services are delivered to participants. Implementation is the carrying out, execution or practice of a plan, a method or any design for doing something. As such, implementation is the action that must follow any preliminary thinking in order for something to actually happen. Key implementation principles. Some key principles that help in effective implementation of development programs are: be clear on the agreed outcomes for the project, what was agreed as constituting success. Build on experience taken by other projects but don't necessarily replicate the approach. Recognize the different approaches required if the change is mandatory or optional. Complement rather than replicate local resources. Promote early wins so people see evidence of improvement quickly. Learn from skeptics and enthusiasts to provide a balanced approach. Collect and visibly respond to feedback, including time for making changes in plan. Adopt an implementation strategy that is sustainable in face of project risks. Anticipate user expectation, pitfalls and real-life challenges. Three steps process of development program implementation. Step 1. Profile your project. Helps you describe the type of change development program will deliver across a number of factors. The factors needed to be considered are what change is being implemented and what will it look like? What will the impact of that change be and how different it will be from the current situation? How many people are directly impacted by the change? When does it need to happen by and is there a deadline? What is the level of risk and the potential to go wrong? What additional supports are required to deliver? How well defined is the solution? Is further change to the solution likely? How important is quality of the solution? How complicated is the change for the user? Step 2. Decide and justify the approach. Using the profile from Step 2, consider how these fit with the rollout types available for development program. Generally, there are 3 implementation options: learning site before implementation, phase approach, big bang. One of the most important aspects of implementation research is the methods and measures used to actually collect the necessary data. Although multiple forms of data collection, example observational, self-report, participant report should be employed, consensus that exists that observational data represents the most reliable method for assessing implementation. When both self-report and observation data are collected, they can be compared against each other to determine reliability. Aside from the measurement methods and types of data collected, it is also important to gather information from as many sources and regarding as many aspects of implementation integrity as possible. To make full use of implementation data, researchers need to always link these findings to program outcome data. Once a clear understanding of program theory has been established, it can be used to develop an implementation process theory, which outlines the mechanisms whereby program services are delivered to participants. Together, program outcome and implementation data allow development programmer to understand both what happened during their program implementation and the resulting effects or outcomes. This knowledge will empower developmental programmer to be able to better understand their current program offerings, improve future services and ultimately better serve their target audiences. These implementation options can be described with the help of this diagram. Step 3. Describe what will be required. Once your rollout type for the development program has been selected, consider a number of practical elements to ensure you have a complete understanding of the implementation approach development program will take. Critically, this step will also help mobilize the appropriate resources as well. The first checklist is common to all approaches and the second list is specific to running a learning site. Program impact. Impact is the state of the target population or the social conditions that a program is expected to have changed. Development program impact is a set of the observed characteristics of the target population or social conditions, not of the program. Thus, the concept of an impact does not necessarily mean that the program targets have actually changed or that the program has caused them to change in any way. Rather, the implementation system and the intervention interact to produce program impact. There are 2 kinds of impacts, namely impact level and impact change, also associated with program effect. Impact level refers to the status of an outcome at some point in time. Impact change refers to the difference between outcome levels at different points in time. Program effect refers to that portion of an outcome change that can be attributed uniquely to a program as opposed to the influence of some other factor. Measuring program impact. Impact measurement is a matter of representing the circumstances defined as the outcome by means of observable indicators that vary systematically with changes or differences in those circumstances. Impact measurement is a systematic way to assess the extent to which a program has achieved its intended outcomes. According to Morton, measuring the impact of a program means demonstrating or estimating the accumulated differentiated proximate and emergent effect, some of which might be unintended and therefore unforeseen. Impact measurement helps understand whether the program is effective or not. It further helps clarify understanding of the program. With the collected information, it can easily be determined which activities to continue and build upon and which are needed to change in order to improve the effectiveness of the program. This can involve using sophisticated statistical techniques in order to measure the effect of the program and to find causal relationship between the program and the various outcomes. Perhaps the most difficult part of evaluation is determining whether the program itself is causing the changes that are observed in the population it was aimed at. Events or processes outside of the program may be the real cause of the observed outcome or the real prevention of the anticipated outcome. Feedback. Feedback is an essential part of development programs. It helps learners to maximize their potential at different stages programs, raise their awareness of strengths and areas for improvement, and identify actions to be taken to improve performance. Ramaprasad defines feedback generally as information about the gap between the actual level and the reference level of a system parameter that is used to alter the gap in some way. He emphasizes that the information by itself is not feedback unless translated into action. Feedback is commonly divided into two types based on whether the gap is widening, positive, or narrowing, which is negative. Feedback can be used for either informational or motivational purposes and often has both a qualitative and a quantitative component. As Connellan and Zemke put it, quantitative feedback tells us how much and how many. Qualitative feedback tells us how good, bad, or indifferent. A feedback loop of a development program has four distinct stages. Evidence, a behavior must be measured, captured, and data stored. Relevance, the information must be relayed to the individual, not in the raw data form it was captured in, but in a context that makes it emotionally resonant. Consequence, the information must illuminate one or more paths ahead. Action, there must be a clear moment when the individual can recalibrate a behavior, make a choice and act. Then that action is measured and the feedback loop can run once more. Every action stimulating new behaviors that inch the individual closer to their goals. Feedback can be seen as informal or formal. Feedback is part of the overall dialogue or interaction between development program, communicator and the learner, not a one-way communication. Feedback is central to developing learners' competence and confidence. To be the most effective, feedback should take place at the time of the activity or as soon as possible after, so that the learner can remember the events accurately. The feedback should be positive and specific and helping to reinforce desirable behavior. Program evaluation. Evaluation is the periodic assessment of a development program's relevance, performance, efficiency and impact, both expected and unexpected in relation to stated objectives. Project managers undertake interim evaluations during implementation as a first review of progress, a prognosis of a project's likely effects, and as a way to identify necessary adjustments in project design. The use of midterm reviews of ongoing projects has spread quickly in the last decade. Terminal evaluations conducted at the end of a project are required for project completion reports. They include an assessment of a project's effects and their potential sustainability. Program evaluation is a systematic method for collecting, analyzing, and using information to answer questions about projects, policies, and program, particularly about their effectiveness and efficiency. While program evaluation first focuses around this definition, important considerations often include how much the program costs per participant, how the program could be improved, whether the program is worthwhile, whether there are better alternatives, if there are unintended outcomes, and whether the program goals are appropriate and useful. The process of evaluation is considered to be a relatively recent phenomenon. Evaluation became particularly relevant in the US in the 1960s during the period of the Great Society social program associated with the Kennedy and Johnson administrations. Extraordinary sums were invested in social program, but the impacts of these investments were largely unknown. Program evaluations can involve both quantitative and qualitative methods of social research. Program evaluation may be conducted at several stages during a program's lifetime. Each of these stages raises different questions to be answered by the evaluator, and correspondingly, different evaluation approaches are needed. Rossi, Lipsey and Freeman 2004 suggest the following kinds of assessment which may be appropriate at these different stages: assessment of the need for the program, assessment of program design and logic or theory, assessment of how the program is being implemented, that is it being implemented according to plan, are the program's processes maximizing possible outcomes, assessment of the program's outcome or impact, that is what it has actually achieved, assessment of the program's cost and efficiency. Needs assessment involves the processes or methods used by evaluators to describe and diagnose social needs. This is essential for evaluators because they need to identify whether programs are effective, and they cannot do this unless they have identified what the problem or the need is. Needs assessment involves research and regular consultation with community stakeholders and with the people that will benefit from the project before the program can be developed and implemented. Hence, it should be a bottom-up approach. In this way, potential problems can be realized early because the process would have involved the community in identifying the need and thereby allowed the opportunity to identify potential barriers. The important task of a program evaluation is thus to first construct a precise definition of what the problem is. Evaluators need to first identify the problem or the need. This is most effectively done by collaboratively including all possible stakeholders, that is the community impacted by the potential problem, the agents or actors working to address and resolve the problem, funders, etc. Second, assess the extent of the problem. Having clearly identified what the problem is, evaluation needs to then assess the extent of the problem. Evaluation needs to answer the where and how big questions. Evaluation needs to work out where the problem is located and how big it is. Evaluation needs to also answer the how and what questions. The how question requires that evaluation determines how the need will be addressed. The what question requires that evaluation is conducted with a task analysis to find out what the best way to perform would be. Third, define and identify the target of interventions and accurately describe the nature of the service needs of that population. It is important to know what or who the target population is or are. It might be individuals, groups, communities, etc. There are three units of the population: population at risk, population in need, and population in demand. Being able to specify what or who the target is will assist in establishing appropriate boundaries so that interventions can correctly address the target population and be feasible to apply. There are 4 steps in conducting a needs assessment. One, perform a gap analysis. Evaluation needs to compare current situation to the desired or necessary situation. The difference or the gap between the two situations will help identify the need, purpose and aims of the development program. Number 2, identify priorities and importance. In the first step above, evaluation would have identified a number of interventions that could potentially address the need. This must be done by considering the following factors: cost effectiveness, that is, consider the budget of the program, assess cost or benefit ratio; executive pressure, that is, whether top management expects a solution; and population, or whether many key people are involved. Number 3, identify causes of performance problems and or opportunities. When the needs have been prioritized, the next step is to identify specific problem areas within the need to be addressed, and to also assess the skills of the people that will be carrying out the interventions. Number 4, identify possible solutions and growth opportunities. Compare the consequences of the interventions if it was to be implemented or not. Needs analysis is hence a very crucial step in evaluating program, because the effectiveness of a program cannot be assessed unless we know what the problem was in the first place. Effective evaluation requires a clear understanding of what a program is supposed to accomplish and how it should be put into practice. At its core, it simply is checking to make sure that the program is running the way it was supposed to run. According to the Center for Disease Control, there are 6 steps to a complete program evaluation. The steps described are: engage stakeholder, describe the program, focus the evaluation design, gather credible evidence, justify conclusions, and ensure use and share lessons learned. These steps can happen in a cycle framework to represent the continuing process of evaluation. There are a number of key steps development programmers should consider when conducting evaluations. A quality evaluation needs to collect data from as many of the core integrity domains as possible. This process allows for comparison of implementation research findings across program and disciplines. Furthermore, all pertinent components of the program and implementation system need to be fully and clearly described in order to facilitate accurate, effective measurement. In order to evaluate program implementation, extension educators need to develop an in-depth understanding of their programs. Potter, Watts and Pressier suggest that in order to accurately measure implementation, programmers need to focus on 3 key areas: program foundations, the implementation system, and program monitoring. Many programs are based upon a theoretical foundation. Program theory explicates the processes whereby program components interact to produce desired outcomes. Although administrators and staff may possess an understanding of the theory underpinning their program, extension educators need to work with program personnel to make sure everyone understands the reasons why a program is believed to work. Quality programs, even those not based on specific theories, should be intentional enough that practitioners can explain what the program does and why they think it works. Once a clear understanding of program theory has been established, it can be used to develop an implementation process theory, which outlines the mechanisms whereby program services are delivered to participants. The evaluation of implementation systems requires an understanding of factors both internal and external to the program. These domains include characteristics of the participant, implementer, delivery mode, implementing organization, inter-organizational relationships, example, coordination between multiple agencies, participants' external social context, and broader societal factors. While the degree to which the implementation system is evaluated must be tempered by practical considerations such as time and money, the explanatory power of the evaluation will be increased by collecting data regarding as many of the implementation factors as possible. After developing a clear understanding of a program's foundation, that is the program theory and implementation systems, a strategy can be developed to measure integrity. The process is commonly known as program monitoring and is defined by Rossi, Lipsey and Freeman as the systematic documentation of aspects of program performance that are indicative of whether the program is functioning as intended. The success of any program monitoring plan is largely contingent upon the clear description of what data is being collected, how it is being collected and by whom. Keys to effective implementation evaluations. There are a number of key steps extension educators should consider when implementing the evaluation. While the general framework of implementation evaluations has been reviewed, in the chapters we've just finished, the following serve as more specific recommendations. First, uniform operationalized definitions of the components of program integrity. Example, adherence, dosage, etc. need to be employed when studying implementation. In other words, a quality implementation evaluation needs to collect data from as many of the core integrity domains as possible. This process allows for comparison of implementation research findings across programs and disciplines. Furthermore, all pertinent components of the program and implementation system need to be fully and clearly described in order to facilitate accurate, effective measurement. Recap. In today's episode, we focused on 4 major areas of development program reporting, namely implementation and impact, feedback and evaluation. Development program refers to a set of communication procedures and practices to facilitate social development. Implementation is the carrying out, execution or practice of a plan, a method or any design for doing something. Development program impact is a set of the observed characteristics of the target population or social conditions, not of the program. Feedback helps learners to maximize their potential at different stages of programs, raise their awareness of strengths and areas for improvement, and identify actions to be taken to improve performance. Feedback is commonly divided into 2 types based on whether the gap is widening, that is positive, or narrowing, which is negative. Feedback has both a qualitative and a quantitative component. Evaluation is the periodic assessment of a development program's relevance, performance, efficiency and impact, both expected and unexpected in relation to stated objectives. Program evaluations can involve both quantitative and qualitative methods of social research. Evaluation needs to also answer the how and what questions. That's all we have for you today. We hope you found the session useful. Thank you and goodbye.